Recently, the biggest exercise of its kind since World War II was put on the drawing and plot boards. Its name, Exercise Desert Strike. This exercise was designed to cover the entire spectrum of warfare, from the employment of conventional weapons through escalation to simulated nuclear conflict.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This area, as far as you can see, was the site of one of the largest war training exercises the U.S. military ever conducted. Welcome to Discover This, and welcome to the Mojave Desert. Back in 1964, almost 13 million acres of the Mojave Desert out here became the training ground for the U.S. military. The exercise was called Desert Strike. In mid-April 1964, troops and machinery from bases all over the United States started heading towards the southwestern desert. Under the direction of the U.S. Strike Command, approximately 100,000 troops would converge on the western edge of Arizona, the far eastern edge of Southern California, and the lower part of Nevada for what was deemed Exercise Desert Strike. The machinery included approximately 900 warplanes from roughly 28 air bases from Washington State to Texas, and approximately 500 tanks from various bases, Fort Irwin in California among them. This war game was designed to pit two countries against each other, battling over the water rights of the Colorado River, south of the Las Vegas area. On the west side of the Colorado River was the fictional country of Colonia. On the east side of the river was the fictional country of Nizona. The war game started on May 11, 1964, and concluded on May 30, 1964. In the end, this exercise cost approximately $54 million in 1964 money, and took the lives of 32 troops. As mentioned earlier, a little over 13 million acres, which covered approximately 22,000 square miles, was utilized for Exercise Desert Strike. This included both public and private lands. The war game area in 1964 had homes and ranches and farms scattered around. Those whose private property was utilized and/or damaged were compensated. But keep in mind, the two-lane highways and county roads were also utilized daily by people traveling to and from their various errands and places they needed to get to, and farmers going to and from their lands. All this occurring during the war game. Again, the plan of the war game was for one side or the other to take control of the Colorado River. The two dams in the affected area were deemed off-limits during the exercise. Dam 1 being Parker Dam, just south of Lake Havasu City, and on the northern end of the city of Parker, Arizona. For those that don't know, Parker Dam is what creates Lake Havasu. The other dam was Davis Dam, which sits on the Colorado River just north of the cities of Bullhead City, Arizona, and Laughlin, Nevada. All existing bridges across the Colorado River inside the exercise area were deemed destroyed. Colonia was expecting Nizona to cross the river at the dams, and they positioned troops in anticipation of that. However, Nizona designed 7 tactical crossing sites along the 140-mile section of the Colorado River that was part of the exercise. To do this, Nizona built military bridges or pontoon bridges. Colonia was caught off guard with that, and Nizona poured troops and equipment into the Colonia side of the river. To conduct the river crossing near Blythe, California, the Nizona leadership persuaded the operators of Parker Dam to slow the release of water so Nizona could cross the river better on their pontoon bridges. There were a few major skirmishes between the two sides, primarily on the Colonia side of the river, with one major battle taking place along Highway 95 just north of the community of Vidal Junction, California. This is Vidal Junction, California, where California Highway 62 and US Highway 95 meet on the California side of the Colorado River. Basically just a gas station, mini mart, and the agriculture inspection station. That's about it. But east a little ways on California Highway 62 is the town of Parker, Arizona. And just west on Highway 62 is what's left of Camp Rice. General Patton's Desert Training Center, Camp Rice, which was, part of it was utilized for Desert Strike, the airfield, airstrip anyway. But this was kind of a central point for Desert Strike, this whole area right in here. If a soldier was captured, he spent the day in a prison camp. Then the next day, it was back to the front lines. Now both Colonia and Nozona had their own fictional governing bodies and generals guiding their movements. The city of Needles, California was declared neutral ground, and both sides had their headquarters in Needles. And both sides had their headquarters in the town of Needles, California. Now, some reports say that one side had some trailers that they operated out of, but in talking with the people at the Needles Museum, it sounds like both sides were actually housed inside this building here, which was not a museum at the time. But in talking to the docents here, one had the main floor and one had the basement. And they operated out of here in Needles, California. For those who know their military history and those who know some about UFO history, retired General Nathan Twining was the Prime Minister of Colonia during this event. General Twining being a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, among other things, during his career. This is General Twining in his headquarters in Needles, California during Desert Strike. On May 26, the Colonia forces staged a large airdrop of forces and equipment and supplies behind the Nozona forces. This was designed to cut off the Nozona forces from their supply lines. It apparently was very successful because May 27th was declared an administrative break day, so everyone had the day off except for the planners. The war game resumed on May 28th, and around May 28th and or May 29th, the Colonia forces dropped fictional atomic bombs on Blythe, California, and Parker, Arizona, where Nozona had accumulated forces. Exercise Desert Strike was called a draw on May 30th, 1964. As mentioned, 32 participants in the exercise lost their lives during the war game, most from vehicle accidents, including 7 who died in a single truck accident. A couple of soldiers drowned while trying to cross the Colorado River near Blythe, California at night, and one airman lost his life when his plane crashed in the mountains just northeast of Vidal Junction, California. Many of you may be aware that this part of the desert, the Mojave Desert, was also home to General George Patton's Desert Training Center back in the early 1940s. A series of desert camps and training locations that he used to get troops ready for warfare in the deserts of northern Africa. The camps were no longer in use in 1964 when Desert Strike operated, but the former Camp Rice and Camp Ibis were in the areas of troop staging and maneuvers during Desert Strike. There's really not much of anything you can see that relates to Exercise Desert Strike these days, other than the area it occurred in, which most has public access, save for the private ranches and farmland. In some areas, you can still find rock formations from the various campsites and tank tracks embedded in the desert hardpack. There is a monument marker just northwest of the city of Blythe, California. If you take Lovekin Boulevard north, it eventually turns into Midland Road, and the marker is at the entrance to the BLM Midland Long-Term Visitor Area, barely 10 minutes outside of the city of Blythe. The other thing I would suggest is visiting the Needles Museum for their displays and information from the docents there. It really is a great museum, not only for the military history of the area, but also Native American history, mining history, and Route 66 history. For those of you who want to research this event further, there is a 28-minute DVD called, appropriately enough, Exercise Desert Strike that you can find on Amazon. There are also a few write-ups and after-action type reports on the old internet. I will include a link to one of those in the description of this video. So that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for this story about Exercise Desert Strike, or Operation Desert Strike, out here in the Mojave Desert, parts of California, Arizona, Nevada. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Hope you learned a few things. I certainly did. And we will see you on the next Discover This.